What up, Misfits? Welcome to the Misfit Heroes podcast. My name is Chris, and together we are going on a journey. Misfits, the last few years, it seems like all we've heard about is the COVID-19 pandemic and how vaccines save lives. It didn't seem like anyone was willing to talk about those contributing health factors that scientific reports seem to hide in the background of their articles. One of the biggest comorbidity factors during the pandemic was diabetes. And it appeared as if people were quick to jump on the "you did this to yourself" bandwagon when they discussed the topic. But there are two types of diabetes, and life is drastically different for those with type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetics are insulin dependent. What that means is that they often require medical insulin to regulate their blood sugar and honestly just stay alive. But supplies for type 1 diabetics are very expensive, and in the United States, while boasting one of the world's largest and most readily available healthcare systems, many diabetics are not able to afford their supplies and medication, and oftentimes they end up rationing their supplies at the expense of their personal health and well-being. My guest tonight unfortunately knows this scenario all too well, and he decided to do something about it. Brandon Lopez is the executive director and CEO of the Embrace Foundation, an organization that offers free diabetic supplies to those who can't afford to pay for their medication. Diabetes is the seventh leading cause of death in the United States, and according to the CDC, 34.2 million people, or 10.5% of the United States population, had diabetes in 2018. It's time to move that needle back a little bit. Misfits, please welcome Brandon Lopez.
Playing the Misfit Heroes podcast.
All right, Brandon, I've been looking really forward to talking to you tonight. I think what you're doing is great, man. I love the energy that what you do with the Embrace Foundation, everything does. I think you guys are just doing something that is very important, so I'm excited to talk to you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me. I looked into your videos a little bit, and I love what you do and what you put a spotlight on, and I feel honored to be a guest. So thank you for having me.
Well, you fit in. You're in good company, man. Well, let's introduce people to you a little bit. Let's start with you. So, I read on your website that you were actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Is that correct?
Yeah, in 2002.
Before we get into the Embrace Foundation and what you guys do, what was life like before all of that? Like, let's get a little background story on you. When did you find out you had diabetes?
Oh, dang. I was like 6 or 7, so I don't have a whole lot of memories of it without it. I just know, I don't know why, and I know type 1 isn't correlated with sweets in your diet, but I just remember like my last memory of being non-diabetic was like climbing on the shelves and trying to grab a chocolate Santa from my refrigerator, and I always feel like that was the reason I got it. But other than that, I don't have a lot of memories about like living without diabetes, which is kind of a good thing because there's nothing to like miss or like, oh man, I missed when I wasn't, it's just kind of like, this is my life. And it's been that for 20 plus years,
Yeah, for sure. So you said you were 6 or 7 when you got diagnosed. I mean, how did you find out? Like, what happened?
So I was, I guess I was a kid, and like, I'm like the most hyper kid out of my entire family. I'm always jumping around. I'm always like jumping on stuff or hitting somebody or being annoying. But one time, like it was just one night, I just kind of was totally acting not myself. I kind of just shut down. I was urinating a lot. I was, going to the bathroom every 4 seconds. It was really weird, but I was like, normal set kid, but like over the course of like a couple of hours, like was like, you could see my rib cage. Like I was just really losing weight, like really rapidly. Yeah. So like you could see my rib cage. And then my parents were like, hey, how about you just sleep in our bed tonight just so we can keep an eye out on you. And then like every going to the bathroom every like hour turned into like seemed like every 10 minutes. I was just getting up, rolling over their knees, going to the bathroom, getting back on. And then eventually I started to throw up. Like once your blood sugar gets to a certain level, I feel like your body just starts to attack itself. So I was just throwing up. And then after I threw up, like, my parents were like, okay, something's up. So they took me to the hospital. And then I was diagnosed. The rest is history.
Yeah. That's really intense, to have something like that happen so young. You mentioned the difference between type 2 and type 1 diabetes. So, I mean, what was that process like when you're a little kid, sort of learning about this, and like now you've got this new sort of thing that you've got to deal with in your life? How did that come about?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel like My mom and dad have always been the like positive mindset type of people. So it wasn't really, they never really focused on like the negative. It was just kind of like, hey, this is your new life. This is what we got to do now. And this is kind of what you have to equip yourself with. And this is how you're going to do it. So I was just kind of like along for the ride, like kind of just learning everything. And I remember like, I don't know, as a kid, all you want is like toys, like, so I was
Yeah.
like, I remember being in my hospital and like, I was like, they just kept giving me Dragon Ball Z toys. I was like, all right, I mean, I'll take it. If I'm getting Dragon Ball Z toys, I'll get diabetes. This is cool. But so the learning process was cool. But once that initial kind of like kickoff, like kind of ended, that's when I started to almost like rebel against it. Like I remember legit a time in my life where I was like, no, I don't have diabetes. I feel like I can outsmart my body. So I'm just going to pretend I don't have it. I like wasn't testing. I wasn't taking insulin. I was just trying to pretending to be like my brothers and sister. I have 4 siblings.
Okay.
And that like really like, my parents, both were working, but they were trying their best to kind of like be on top of things. But at the end of the day, your diabetes is your responsibility. And it just got to a really bad point to where I was like the second worst diabetic in my hospital.
Oh
The
wow.
first place, yeah, first place went to somebody who their parents were taking their needles for like drugs. So I was like, I was doing really bad at like that like first half of that. But yeah, it was a learning process for sure.
Wow. That's crazy.
Mm,
Um, it amazes me that how quickly something like that comes on. Um, so
mm,
you
mm.
find out that you're diabetic, and life is just sort of a blur now, and life just sort of changes for you a little bit.
Mm.
What inspired you a little bit? What made you want to um, start the Embrace Foundation, and how did that come along?
Good question. I knew that I always wanted to do something with diabetes. I knew that it's something that always called to me. And my dad said, like, my dad would always be like, everything happens for a reason. You have it for a reason. And as a kid, you're like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't have diabetes. I don't have it for a reason. I just got stuck with it. But that's something that always stuck with me. Like, maybe I do have it for a reason and whatnot. And then around 2014 to 20 like 17, I was in a relationship with this girl, and she had this kid, and I was taking care of kind of both of them. And there's rent, and there's bills, and there's food, and there's X through Z. And my parents and I had a falling out, so it was just kind of like I was off their insurance. I was like at a part-time job, so I just had zero insurance. So it was just kind of like, it was a one time in my life where I felt like nobody could help me. I was just kind of like, good luck. And I was like, oh man, there's like so many other people I know that are just going through the same thing that I was. So I remember having to like, I was on the insulin pump yet, but I was using insulin pens, which is just basically like a syringe of vial. I was
Mhm.
reusing the same pen tip like 10 plus times, which is extremely dangerous. Like that could be lethal. And then I wasn't testing my blood sugar at all because test strips could cost anywhere from like 50 to, I went to the store yesterday and it was $89 for 50, which is like not even a month's worth. So I just wasn't testing. I
Wow.
was like guesstimating. I was like, well, I feel low, so I'll just eat some food. And once I get high enough, like, oh, I feel really bad. So let me take like 3 or 4 units maybe and see where I feel like. And then, that messes with your energy level. So I was like sleeping all day. It was just like it was really bad. I would have to go to, local doctors and endocrinologists, and my endocrinologist who would, check on me when I was younger. They cut you off when you're 18 because it was like kids only. I went back to him and I was like, hey, I'm in this situation. Can you give me any sort of insulin? So they give me like these little baby vials of insulin. So that would just get me by barely. I would just ration. Eventually, I got a full time job. I got insurance. I was good to go. My stuff was taken care of. But that always stuck with me. Like I know there's so many more people in this country who were like struggling exactly like I was. So that's where I just kind of drew up the logo in like 2018, and then that's where the idea was concepted. And then like I started a little Instagram page raising awareness, kind of getting mm, maybe a package or two every month, and then shipping one out every like two because we just didn't have an inventory yet. Um, and then around 2020, I really have to give a lot of my our success to TikTok because I just started making TikToks, and that's when we opened up a PO box. A lot of people were sending a lot of supplies in. People found out about us. We are sending a lot of supplies out. we're getting volunteers, and then that's just kind of where it took off, is around 2020 during the pandemic.
That's an amazing story, man. I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this, and the need that you sort of picked up, it's sort of instilled in you, and you realize that this obviously is happening to other people. I mean, it's really kind of crazy hearing all that. I want to go back to the rationing the insulin. I mean, you know, from what I understand, that's a very common thing. I mean, how did that play out? I mean, did you ever get into any like danger with that?
Basic, like, yeah, like the insulin it costs anywhere from, legit back then it was like $500 to $900, even now, for barely a month's supply. So it was just kind of like I said, just kind of rationing. So like I would just skip lunch or skip meals, or just have like things with very, 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 very low carbs, just to kind of to get me by. But it's dangerous, and I know like every single year people pass away because of it, because they don't think to go ask their endocrinologist, or they don't think to ask their doctor, so they simply just fall behind and pass away, unfortunately.
Well, it amazes me, how expensive these things are too, particularly for something that you've got to live off of. It's like, during the pandemic, I realized that you said you sort of got it under control before the pandemic a little bit, but I mean, during the pandemic, when most people aren't even allowed to go see their doctor. I mean, that's got to be sort of, hope. It's got to feel hopeless, right?
Yeah, so totally, and that's when that's when we were getting a lot more requests, because people, like you said, you couldn't see the doctor. Like everybody was trying to figure things out. Like there was like Zoom doctor visits. It was just like really weird, and also like everybody was like, we were all in a state of panic. Like we were all just staying at home. Like we were even afraid to go out or to pick up insulin. Like it was just crazy, and that was like a switching point for us too, because like, is it safe to send out supplies? Like it was just crazy. But that was definitely like a hectic time where like requests I saw like a boost in like requests and people in need, for sure. And I'm sure a lot of people were like rationing during that time.
So on average, I mean, how many requests do you think you would say you receive per day?
That's a good question. I think like right now we're moving. We have like active requests. Like we're pushing a little over 4,000, and we've completed over almost 3,000. And it's like I want to say at least like 10 to 20 a day, which is insane to think about. But like,
yeah,
it's crazy. I got to double check on that, but I think it's at least very, very released 10 to 20 a week.
Yeah, I've looked at a couple of your videos, and you just got these like stacks coming up of packages that you're sending out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was real excited to see that somebody came through and made a donation recently. You had put up a video a couple days ago, like, "Hey, look, we've got all these supplies, but we don't have enough money to ship them out to people." And I was really excited to see that. So, if somebody does want to donate their supplies and things like that, I mean, what exactly can they donate? Like, what are you guys looking for, and how can they do it? Do they have to like secure anything, or what's that process like?
That's a great question. It's a question that gets asked a lot, actually. So what we're basically looking for is any unused supplies, and unused by like, of course we don't want any like opened pen needles, like opened packs of syringes, because of course you can close and whatnot. Like there's certain things that we will take that's like opened, maybe like an opened box of pen needles, because those are individually sealed, but we won't take like a used vial of insulin, a used lancing device, like used an open thing of test strips, because basically anything that can be around blood, or that can be around like an open wound, or that anything that can like be easily concealed back in, like that won't be sanitized beyond what we do to sanitize it and disinfect and all these things, we won't accept. But we will accept anything from insulin, pen tips, closed boxes of syringes, closed boxes of test strips, any sort of diabetic supplies. What we don't accept as well is like things like metformin. A lot of type 2 diabetics use that, but we don't accept like any pills. People send us anything though, like regardless. Like I got like an opened thing of Band-Aids. I got like an opened thing of like tampons. I got like a thing of like ointment. We get random stuff, but you kind of just have to filter through it. But we have like a process like to make sure that everything's like legit, everything's good to send out, everything is like disinfected and all that good stuff. We use gloves and all that.
Somebody's
Yeah.
just going through their medicine cabinet, like, you can use this, right?
Yeah. Just take it all. You can sort through when you get it.
Well, that's hilarious, man. Well, yeah, I think it's amazing, what you do, and I'm surprised by how many people that you've actually affected by that. I mean, 4,000 is no joke.
That's crazy. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I'm sure you've created a ton of relationships through this. I mean, do you have any like sort of success stories from people that you've helped out along the way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had this guy. He's super vocal about it. You can check out his YouTube channels like DJ Omega 500, but he's legit like a guy who had like a smartphone. I think it was like one of those, the ones that the government gives you, I think. But he was homeless, just straight homeless. He had diabetes. Like he was just living on the streets. He literally did not know like what to do. He's been homeless for like a couple of months. And then he found us on TikTok and he was like, "Hey man, I really need your help. Like I need like some insulin and just the bare minimum just to get by. Like I just found out that I'm homeless and diabetic, so it's just like all happening at once." And I was like, "Yeah, like where can I like send it to?" And he had like, thankfully we got him set up with like a PO box, so we sent it there. And then he received his supplies. He was able to kind of just use them for like we're just supplying him for a couple of months. This is a little earlier on, so we were able to just focus on him and just make sure he was getting taken care of. And then, he just stopped asking for supplies. And then a couple months later, he hits me up on Instagram. He's like, "Brandon, I'm so glad I found you. Like, I got an apartment. I got a job now. I'm set, but I just want to thank you. I'm on like insurance now." And then every so often he'll be like, "Levamir, please." And then we'll send it to him. But that's like my biggest, I think that's like as an organization, our biggest success story, because I think that's like literally, as a diabetic, one of the scariest things you can think about is just being homeless and not having any supplies, because obviously you have to think of where you're going to live, where you're going to sleep, where you're going to eat. But then the whole aspect of like, how am I going to live, without my
Yeah.
insulin and, how to pay for all this stuff.
People don't think about that. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and this pandemic really just made like it just threw a total wrench into everything.
Mhm.
And I'm just thinking about that just like in my personal life. But I mean, I'm not a diabetic. I don't have any of these issues or anything like that. I couldn't even imagine. So many people were just offset and off put by this whole COVID situation.
Mhm.
One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, and you brought it up a little bit earlier too, is that type 1 diabetes versus type 2 diabetes. And type 1 is not insulin regulated. It's not a health issue and things like that. But during the pandemic, it seemed like so much of the focus was on like vaccines, and this is the only way to do this. You know, do you only work with type 1 diabetics, or do you also help people with type 2 diabetic needs as well?
We help anybody. Like I basically, what I say is, if we have what you need, we'll give it to you. So we
Yeah.
help all sorts of people who have diabetes. There's type 1, type 2, gestational. If we have like a surplus of what they need, sometimes we'll help out like dogs and cats who have diabetes. Like just
Oh, wow.
basically, yeah. If we have what you need, we'll give it to you. But we help all sorts of people who have diabetes. Yeah.
In America, we've got a healthcare system. And another one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was just the cost of diabetic supplies in general. It seems like over the last like 10 to 15 years, there's been so much of a focus on healthcare. We had the Affordable Health Care Act, and that was sort of focused on insurance. What do you think the holdup is with the cost of diabetic supplies? Do you think it's an insurance thing, or do you think it's a healthcare issue?
I think that's a good question, man. I mean, I just, that what comes down to it is it's like a greed thing, man. Like I think,
Wow.
like the guy who created, not created, but the guy who founded insulin, the guy who discovered it, Frederick Banting, and there was Charles Best and one other guy, but they're all from Canada, and he founded it, and he was like able to save like this room full of like dying kids. And he's like, I want to sell the patent for $1. I want to make sure it's accessible to everybody. His direct quote was like, insulin doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the world. And like, that's why he just wanted it to be accessible to anybody because he knew how badly it was needed. Fast forward now, insulin costs less than $4 to make, but is sold over $600 a month, which is like,
Wow.
over like a 300, 400, 500% increase, which is insane. I just think it's like just when it comes down to it is just greed. Like I know test strips don't cost $85, I think, to make. I know we have to make profit and whatnot, but it's just kind of like the markup is insane. Like this is my insulin pump right here. This cost almost like 6,000. It almost cost like 6,000 to pay for, and this is like
Wow.
2001 technology. This is like, you know, but I don't. Yeah, it's just that's what it comes down to. Is just I think it's just greed, which is it's crazy, and which is why I kind of wanted to put it in our hands and kind of get in control of it and give it away for free, essentially, which is like the biggest, ode to Bansing and the people who discovered it.
Yeah, I was reading about the history of that because I honestly I didn't know. I mean, but the commercial history of insulin, and you're right. But from what I understand, when they started, they made it from like cattle and pig pancreas. They literally they like pulled it from livestock, and from what I understand now, they're able to like create it in a lab with I think like rat DNA or something like that. Do you know
I
about that?
think so. I don't know. I don't know how they make it now, to be honest, but I do know it was made from like pig and cattle, like pancreases and whatnot, back in the day. I don't know how they make it now, but I would guess it's like in the lab.
I'm looking forward to the future a little bit.
Hmm.
Do you pay attention to the industry as a whole because it's something that affects you? I mean, do you see like any type of changes or hear about anything to sort of I guess the point that I'm getting at is I love what you're doing, but I hate that you have to do it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
and
totally.
and I mean, do you see any like outlook for the future of like is there any sort of technology advancement that you think could be made like or is there any type of or is it really just greed?
Mm. I mean, I'd hope. I think that like there's a lot of different angles to it. Like there's like newer technology, and I'd like to say that like where we're at with technology is I literally the next best thing to a cure. Like I just talked crap about my pump, but my pump and CGM combo is like the second best thing to a cure. It's like I almost have a working pancreas because other than calibrating, like they talk to each other. If my blood sugar is going high, it'll lower it for me. Like certain ones connect to the phone, so you can just kind of enter the insulin or whatever through the phone. It'll contact your loved ones, letting them know like, hey, this person's high or this person's low. Like check on them. Like technology is at its peak with diabetes, and I know they're just coming out with something that's going to like with my CGM that's on my stomach, it stays for like 5 to 7 days. And they're working on something that's about to come out, to my knowledge, that can stay there for 6 months. So it's like we're going closer to technology, but I just imagine that stuff is going to be like insanely pricey. And then there's that whole conversation of like places like, JDRF, which where they hold great camps, they hold great events and stuff. But it says like there's researching a cure, but it's like it kind of seems like it's the cure that might never be here. And so I'd rather focus on what we have now and getting supplies to people who need it now. And then the last edge of that question, I know I'm kind of spouting a lot of, but this is all that's coming to my head. But
You're good, man.
the last aspect of that is like, there's the Walmart insulin that got approved. That's like, you don't need a prescription, you don't need anything. It's just, you go to Walmart, like, hey, I need insulin. And it's like $20, but it's like it's not just like just insulin. It's like a 70-30 insulin. So it's like, it works as like a plan Z, but it's like the insulin that I use, it takes about 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes to hit the system. That insulin can take up to 4 hours to hit your
Oh
system. So it's
wow.
like a really bad type of insulin. And like I said, it's a step in the right direction, but it's like not enough yet. And then something just got approved. Um, this bill got approved for a cap on insulin for $35, and had people arguing about, politics. Anytime politics is involved, people argue, but if it was going to pass the Senate or whose fault it was or whatever. But that was the last thing I saw was that they were looking to cap insulin at $35. And like, that would be awesome. I just don't know where it's going to go. But like you said, man, like, my wish is to not exist. Like you took it from my mouth. Like if I could just like, all right, we're good. Like diabetics are taken care of. That would be awesome. Like, but I just don't know how far away that is, if it is even, a reality that we'll ever live in.
Yeah, well, since you brought it up, I wanted to talk to you about that because I saw that video you put up about the insulin for $35. Now, do you know any of the specifics of that, or any of the ins and outs or particulars about it? I mean, there's not a whole lot of information out there about it.
Yeah, no, I did a little bit of research on it, and like I said, the bill got passed, and like from the last time I looked at it, we were seeing if Senate was going to pass, and there was one guy. I don't remember his name, but he was like, it was the last clip I saw, like, and he was like, there's just so many people with like the mindset that type 2, like all diabetes is caused by an unhealthy diet. And he literally was on the podium saying like, listen, you guys want us to cap the insulin, but how about you guys just go on a diet and like go for some exercise? Like, dude, I don't know what, like, I didn't even know what to think about that, but it doesn't look good. And I'm not usually a pessimistic person, but realistically, as far as I know, it didn't look like it was going to make it very far. But I mean, I hope so. I hope.
I mean, I don't really like talking about politics either, but the thing is, it's a thing, and it's like I totally see the stigma, like what you're talking about. It's kind of mind boggling to me, a lot of times, completely outside of the government, these things are designed with like the best intentions, and then when they actually like come down to the pipeline, they end up like that 4-hour Walmart insulin, like you were just talking about.
Yeah, unfortunately.
One of the other things I want to talk to you about, and this is sort of shooting from the hip a little bit, but I don't know if you know this. There's actually a couple years ago, I want to say maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, there was a hacker group that created an alternative to the EpiPen, because they realized that the EpiPen was like $700 at the time, and it went in cost from like, I want to say like $58, like it skyrocketed up to like $700. So they created this alternative in their houses that you can make for like $35. And it's pretty cool to see, but I mean, do you think there's any possibility of that, like as sort of like an open source platform, like, with diabetics supplies, or do you think it's really something where you need to go with what the pros offer?
That's a really good question. Personally speaking, I would never go with like an insulin that like somebody made unless I literally like needed to. But like what I can say about that is there is a documentary. I'll like send it to you, and maybe you can put it in a link or whatever. But there's literally a group of guys that are in like a basement type of garage thing with like a whole lab, who are like actually gaining feet, who are like literally creating insulin, and it's like legit. It works. Now they're just like, their biggest feat now is like making it at high volumes and getting it approved and sending it out and whatnot. But that's like, as soon as you said the hackers, that's the first thing that like reminded me of that. Like, I'm not smart enough to create insulin in my garage, but there are a group of people who are, which is like exciting. And it's, if they gave me insulin, I think I would try it. But there's definitely people like that who are taking it into their own hands.
I mean, you give some nerds like $400 and a couple afternoons. they'll figure out some crazy stuff.
Yeah, I made the insulin, man. It only took 24 hours.
Oh man. Well, yeah, it's amazing, the things that have happened over the last couple of years. We're kind of blessed in this country, honestly, that we have government programs that allow for stuff, and we have people that are doing stuff that, you're benefiting the entire community with what you're doing. one of the things that I've been paying a lot of attention to recently is the situation in Ukraine and Russia.
Mm,
And, you hear in the news where the president of Ukraine is like saying, "Hey, I need ammunition. I need this," but the citizens are still sort of living their lives in Ukraine.
mm.
Do you only deal with people in America, or have you done anything internationally as well?
Good question. I can answer both of them. Is we started off doing like anything we were shipping off to Canada, we were shipping off to like Great Britain, but it just got like crazy expensive. It cost like
Yeah.
$40 to ship something out, and with that $40, we could have helped out 4 people here. And I think that like here is our biggest need. And then
Yeah.
so we did like a year of that, and we kind of stepped back and want to kind of put our focus in America. And we're going to try to branch out later on, but we had to regress from that because it was just kind of getting too expensive to ship out there.
Yeah.
But we do hope to get back to that. And then secondly is we got in touch with somebody on Instagram. They actually reached out to us. Their name is Solidarity for Insulin, and they are in direct contact with somebody in like Ukraine. So we send to them, and they send over to like their contact. But it's just kind of like the basics: meters, strips, all that, like insulin and stuff like that. So they have been a huge help. And then
Yeah.
but my girlfriend's sister's fiance is actually like knows people who in Ukraine. So they have like this app where they kind of contact each other, where there's like a direct chat for like people who need insulin. So we've been able to kind of get in contact with them. We've had to like translate it and
Yeah.
then, like get in contact with them. But there's definitely people out there that need help.
It's just amazing to me what you guys are doing. I think it's insane that you just sort of started this on a whim and you saw a need and you completed that need. You fulfilled that. What exactly do you guys need most? I mean, is it money to ship stuff out? Is it donated supplies? I mean, what do you need most right now?
Great question. I think that the biggest things we need right now is monetary donations. Like I said, we have 4,000 working applications that we're working on, and we do ask for like a $10 shipping fee from our applicants, but I want to say most of them can't like afford it. So that's where we kind of we will never turn anybody away saying like we don't have you don't have the enough to ship it. Like, good luck. Like we take care of everybody. So our biggest thing is like if we have more donations, we're able to send like more out. We got we talked about a little bit earlier. Somebody like sent us a ton of monetary donations, so we were able to send out like 50 last week rather than our usual like 15 to 20. So it's like the more donations we get in, the more we're able to kind of ship out each week. So I would say that's our biggest thing. And then with that, we'd be able to kind of open up another storage unit, keep more supplies in there. And then our biggest supply right now is always insulin. And for some reason, pen tips, we need pen needles really badly. That's like our biggest thing because whenever we ship out like insulin pens, we need pen needles to ship with it. So that's another one of our big things. And then meters. But all that stuff you can find on our Amazon wish list. And it sends it directly to us. We can send it directly to them.
Okay. Well, we'll put a link down in the show notes down below so that everybody can see, what you guys need and how to get it to you. And all that information is on your website, correct?
Mm-hmm. Appreciate that. Thank you. Yep. It's www.theembracefoundation.org.
Awesome. So theembracefoundation.org is your website. Where else? What are all your other social medias and all that stuff? Where else can people find you on the internet?
We are most active, most prominent on TikTok. We just like hit 85,000. That's where I kind of like make videos showing what we do behind the scenes. We talk to our community. We have like TikTok lives every Wednesday. You kind of see everything behind the scenes, what we're doing. We keep you updated over there. We're also on Instagram. That's where you can kind of reach me personally whenever. But those are our two biggest things. And that's EMBRAC3 for both.
I'll make sure to put links to everything down in the bottom in the show notes so everybody can see it.
Thank you.
I'm really appreciative of what you do. I love that there are people out there doing it. Like I said, I wish we didn't have to have people like you out there doing it, but I'm so glad that you're there, man.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a lot like going to the doctor. It's like I'm glad you're here, but I don't want to see you. But
yeah, right. Thank you.
Well, Misfits, I want you to go check Brandon out, and I think what he's doing is just fantastic. I really appreciate it. We're winding down towards the end of every episode. I ask everybody the same question, and it's one question in two parts. And that question is, what was the last goal that you completed, and what's the next goal that you want to complete for yourself?
I found a lot of people running into the problem of like I forget to test myself, I forget to dose, I forget to I feel unmotivated, I feel uninspired, and this and that. And that's something I ran into as well when I was newly diagnosed. So we created this kind of texting service called My Friend Frederick, and Frederick is our little pancreas mascot. Frederick is like a homage to Frederick Banting, who discovered insulin. But it's just essentially Frederick will text you 3 times a day saying like, "Hey, good morning. Today's going to be awesome. Don't forget to test yourself." And then at like 12, he'll say, "Hey, good afternoon. What'd you have for lunch? Like, don't forget to test yourself." Keep going. And then like at the night, he'll be like, "Hey, good night. You did great. Don't forget to test yourself before you go to bed. Here's like an article that helped me, stay inspired." And it's a totally free service. And it's kind of something that keeps the community together, keeps everybody motivated, and a reminder to test yourself. Cause like, you can get busy. Like, like sometimes I forget to test myself in the morning or when I'm eating or this and that. But yeah, that's like my biggest success and biggest goal that I think we did together recently. And then one that I'm looking forward to is we're doing our walk for diabetes in May down here in Arizona in Sloan Park. I think it's like May 7th. So I'm excited to go there. It's going to be like a whole field. I'm not running it. JDRF is running it. But our team is going to be there, and we're going to be kind of spreading the word about Embrace, and there's going to be a lot of diabetics there. So we're going to be able to spread the word, and I'm excited to meet new people there and kind of get acquainted with more diabetics and kind of spread the word and let people know about us. But that's the next big kind of goal in mind. We're kind of gearing up for that right now. So
awesome, man. Well, I'm really looking forward to what comes for you in the future. I think again, what you're doing is just fantastic, and the fact that you just sort of took it upon yourself to get started with this, I mean, it's really impressive, honestly.
Thank you.
And the fact that it's just grown at the speed and rate that it has, it's just, I'm very happy for you, man. Keep doing what you're doing. It's a great thing.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Misfits, I definitely want you to go check Brandon out. Like I said, we're going to put information down in the show notes down below. Hit his stuff up. Go check him out. I really think, the content you put out actually on TikTok as well is very interesting. I mean, I could just sit there and watch it. You're a funny guy. So,
Thank you, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, definitely I really want people to go check you out, and I hope everything works out for you in the future with the walk and everything that you're looking forward to. I'm really excited for you, man. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Can I talk about one more thing before we leave?
100%. Go for it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I always feel bad when I like the spotlight's on me, but I just want to shout out like our volunteers. Like we have like 20 of them that work like remotely. We have Shiraz, who's our COO, who like kind of takes care of all of our technical stuff. She takes care of the applicant sheet. She does she created the website. Like I definitely don't want to make it seem like I'm the mastermind. Like I'm just the dumb guy behind the chair, but she kind of did all that like crazy stuff. Her brother does the tech stuff for that. We have like Dom and Rachel, who are our team leads, who kind of take care of the other volunteers who schedule requests or answer emails or do the troubleshooting. We have Josie, who's in Minnesota, who like reads every single application and writes a personal note to every single person so that we can include it in each and every of our packages. She's like making my girlfriend and I a quilt right now. Like she's incredible. And she's doing she's starting a bake sale and like an auction that's going to be in Minnesota in June. So huge like shout out to her. So we hope I'm not missing anybody. And we have Kelly Godby and her son Noah, who's like a huge help. She like makes us address labels. And then we have somebody who sent us our thermal printer. So it's just like we have a huge team that like definitely makes this possible. That isn't just me. And then I want to show you real quick. Before we got on, I was working on sending some stuff out, but this is what a little behind the scenes look of like what it is. This is our in the kitchen right now, but this is our packages for the week. And then here's our little label and our little behind the scenes look. But after we package stuff up on Wednesday, we take it here and then we ship them out. And then, oh crap, last thing is like A huge shout out to Lorena and Katie and Tiffany, who come in every Wednesday, who are local, who help me pack and ship. So just kind of don't want to put it out like it's just all me, because it definitely is. I wanted to shout them out for sure before we go. And shout out to you too. You're awesome, man.
Oh, thank you. well, that's a good quality to have, man. You know, that's like I said, it's super impressive what you do, and you know, I'm very grateful that there are people out there looking out for others like you're doing. And shout out to all those people. You said like 9 of them. I was going to like hold on to all the names, but I couldn't do it.
You're like, after the fourth, he's like, he's going to keep going. I'm going to stop.
I think there was a Josie, and yeah. I got to like the fourth one. And I was like, nope, I can't hang on to them. well, that's awesome, man. You know, like I said, I love what you guys are doing, and it's just really impressive. So keep up the great work, man. I really appreciate you coming on, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking to you. So I love what you do, man. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it, man. Likewise. Take care, brother.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Well, Misfits, we did it. That's our episode. I want to thank you so much for listening, and thanks again to our sponsors. If you want to support any of the sponsors of this podcast, there are affiliate links on the sponsors tab of our website over at www.misfit-heroes.com. You can also find links to any of our social media there, so be sure to follow us for immediate up-to-date info about the podcast. Please, Misfits, if you like this podcast and you want to help me out, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button down below so you're notified of new episodes as they're released, and be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. Truly, Misfits, I love you. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, be kind, love one another, and be a hero.